10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, welcome to the Rising Coaches Podcast. This is Adam Gordon. I appreciate you guys tuning in and being with us today. Today's episode is brought to you by Cerebro Sports. Cerebro Sports, helping basketball's decision makers find better players faster using simple player eval metrics. Check them out at cerebrosports.com. That's CEREBRO sports.com. They do a great job of presenting analytics, but not in a way where you need a whole thesaurus and dictionary to figure out what they're talking about. They make it simple. They make it easy to understand. They're doing unbelievable stuff. The stuff that I've been really blown away by is the portal. All the kids in the transfer portal, the metrics that Cerebro Sports has provided there has been, I really think, a game changer. You know, you got to evolve as the game evolves, and you got to find tools to help you do it. And there's no better one than what Cerebro Sports has put out. So make sure you guys check them out. Again, cerebrosports.com. And also, if you're not a member of Rising Coaches, we encourage you to check it out. Risingcoaches.com. Our membership, we have over 1,500 members. Membership costs $120 a year. You get unbelievable benefits, including access to our member site, which has over 1,000 hours of unbelievable content that we've curated and collected over the course of 12 years now, which is wild. You get access to all of our members. We guarantee that if nothing else, you will meet other coaches, and this is a relationship business, and those relationships are currency in this profession. So make sure you check us out, risingcoaches.com, to see a full list of member benefits, and hopefully you can sign up and become part of the family. All right, let's get right to it. Very excited for today's guest. We're joined by John Cho. John spent almost 20 years in the NBA with the Houston Rockets and is now the CPO for Cerebro Sports. John, good afternoon, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm glad to be here. I think the Rising Coaches organization is it's really great that you guys are helping young guys to climb that ladder and to climb it the right way, and giving them the tools necessary to do it. And I'm all for it. I want to help as many people as I can through the experiences that I've had working my way up the ladder there with the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying those kind words. And I'm sure your first intro to Rising Coaches was probably when you worked with Brandon Rosenthal.
Yep.
Very young
Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon at the time. Yep.
Tell us about that experience. First of all, what was that? That was probably like 2015-ish?
It may have been way before that even. I think he got his start maybe 05, around there.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure. It seems like
Brandon's not that old. He would have been in 05.
With every NBA season, it goes by so quick, but it seems like it's been like 15 years ago. But Brandon was very young at the time, came in. At the time, I think we had three interns, and everybody had their roles, but everybody knew how to do a little bit of everything. So it was a really good learning experience. I felt like back then we were basically turning out video coordinators at the highest level. Teaching them how to break games down, how to prepare everything, and getting them wet behind the ears to provide and support the coaching staff above them. And I've probably had about 20 interns throughout the years, and everybody's anywhere from personnel scouting for the Memphis Grizzlies all the way to, still scouting. Some are coaching now in the college levels. So it's been great to keep in touch with all those guys and see them grow. And so many of them call me and thank me just for giving them the opportunity to get in. And that's what you were talking about, the networking and who sometimes is how you get your start. And I think it's great that you're providing that for a lot of these young guys coming up.
No, I appreciate that, John, and I want to talk a little bit about your experience with the Rockets because 19 years with one organization, it's kind of unheard of, right? Like regardless of position, but especially a position like yours. Can you talk about how you got involved with the Rockets and how you kind of survived that long? I think what at least four head coaches and 19 seasons.
Yeah, I owe a lot to my dad's work ethic. He woke up. We didn't see him wake up, go to work, come in when we were eating dinner, and then go to sleep. Like that's all he did. He worked so that he could provide for his family. And there wasn't a lot of word exchange, or he didn't really guide us with verbally, but just through example. I learned how just by working hard, you can get you can excel in anything you do. So when I went to school for computer engineering at Texas A&M, and when I finished during that first summer, the equipment manager was one of my brother-in-law's buddies, and they needed someone to film training camp up in Austin. You had to get up in a 30-foot lift and film practice, and that was it. But I ran with it. I filmed, and then when we had breaks, I came down the lift and started making Gatorades, wiping the floor, and whatever I could do, picking up towels, whatever I could do. And Rudy Tom Janovich at the time, world champion coach, back to back, he basically saw the energy I had, and he said, "Look, these players are feeding off of this kid that's just running around like doing whatever he can, got a great attitude, come in with energy. Let's see if he'll stay." And it was a pretty big disappointment to my parents. Going to school for computer engineering, expecting to make 50, 60, up to 80,000 a year, and I'm taking a minimum wage job working for the equipment staff. But it was a dream to me, like hanging out with NBA basketball players right out of college. I'm not gonna say I was with in the popular group. I didn't party a lot. In high school, I was in orchestra. I told people I was on the wrestling team, but I was actually in orchestra. Uh, so it was like being part of the cool crowd, and I loved it. It was just so much fun every day. But
Hey,
as
John,
far
I'm sorry, who was on? Give us like some of the players, like what era Rockets team was this? Who was on the team? And yeah, I know
yeah,
you mentioned.
this was '99, so it was Hakeem Olajuwon's last year. And I'm trying to think, Matt Bullard was still playing back then. It was kind of the tail end of the guys from the World Championship team, and early on we got Steve Francis, Katina Mobley. I think Kelvin Cato was one of the centers back then. Maurice Taylor. It was a young team, just getting started. I think my first 6 years we didn't make the playoffs, so it was pretty. It's tough. We were doing a lot of losing, but there was still that culture that was there. The winning attitude was there. Like we overachieved almost every season we were there, and that's what I think. As a coaching staff, you really can't control who your players that come in. You just have to do the best with what you're provided and put your players in a situation where they can succeed. And I think every year that I was with the Rockets organization, we did that. So I was pretty proud to be a part of that organization for so long. And you know, I think my first couple years, I was more concerned about how to fold jerseys to make them look nice when you opened them out of the bags. We almost revolutionized the way that you folded laundry. They used to just throw it in a bag, bunched up, put it in a duffel bag, and then the players would get it. And it was just, I think it was Puma back then, would just come out all crumpled up. And I was like, why don't we start rolling it and then put it in the bags, and that became kind of the standard. We were getting $100 tips because the players were getting their clothes and it looked like it was ironed. Their practice jerseys came out looking like it was ironed. But you just gotta, really commit to what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're doing laundry. It doesn't matter if you're wiping the floors. Whatever you do, just do it to your best ability, and someone's gonna notice. But the way when Van Gundy came to the team, he needed a stat pack put together that he had in New York. It was 5 or 6 guys behind the scene taking their own stats that the NBA didn't keep in box scores. things like deflections, pick and roll situations. We were all doing the synergy stuff by hand, and he needed someone to build that pack when he got there. And we didn't have any analytics team. We didn't have nobody even had laptops back then. So Keith Jones, who was our trainer and has been there for longer than I have, was like, well, John just went to school for computer engineering. He's probably the first guy that we should try to see if he can get it done. I went to Kinko's that night. Kinko's used to have like workstations there you could work and pay by the hour. I checked in at 7 at night. You just started building everything by, one by one in Excel. I started off with the hand tracking stats, a way to fill the data into a table, and then a way to report all the data. And I was there for about 12 hours. The guy at Kinko's was like, I've never seen anybody work 12 hours straight in one of our workstations. But I'm walking back to the hotel at around 7 in the morning, and Van Gundy's an early bird. He was coming out, getting ready for like a 9 o'clock practice. And I saw him and handed him a whole stack of pages. And he was like, what the F is this? This is, there's no way you could have pulled this off. My New York staff team took 2 months to build this. There's no way you did it overnight. And I guess he flipped through the stuff. And then shortly after practice, Keith comes to me and he's like, hey, you're going to get promoted to the video room. He wants you to work closely with the coaching staff, and he wants to double your pay today. And I was like, oh my goodness. One night of just staying up and killing myself to try to get this stat pack done really changed my life, my career. And that's when I actually started looking at basketball and analyzing. I never played. I have a pretty good 3-point jump shot now because we were doing laundry. And what do you do when you're waiting for laundry to get done? You go and shoot. But it's kind of unheard of when you don't have any basketball knowledge coming into the league, and then you can last a 19-year career with one team. And I just kept working my way up and doing whatever needed to be done. I was helping them redesign the locker room and the theater room when Daryl was there. And it's just, man, there's the internet's crazy. You can learn almost anything from the internet if you really sift through all the stuff and try it and see what works. Even with this new company, Cerebro Sports, I'm having to learn a lot. I've never been in the business field and learning managerial skills like this, but learning on the job and just being committed can really, really take you a long ways.
I'm not going to let you just skip over the building a facility and film room. I got to dig you deeper into that one. So talk about, so you mentioned Rudy Tom Janovich, Jeff Van Gundy. At what point does Daryl Morey join the Rockets?
I want to say Daryl joined at the end of Jeff Van Gundy era. I remember they butted heads a lot after games, after bad losses and things. But Daryl really changed the world of basketball and analytics at the Houston Rockets, anyways. And I think being in that regime allowed me to understand that analytics are great. We were spending, I don't want to say exact numbers, but $500,000 on stats, and that was unheard of back then. And the thing is, you have all these analytics, and the coaches can't utilize them because they're, even when true shooting percentage came out, they're like, I don't need this crap. Like, just give me the field goal percentage and threes. I can tell you what their true shooting percentage is going to be. But you have to be able to platter the data, simplify it, make it. Just give them the stuff that they can use so that they can now use it for coaching strategy. And that was my niche for a while, was taking the analytics and putting it into a report that's usable. Because in the NBA, it was, back-to-back games. You got 12 hours to fully prepare for the next team sometimes. And if you're getting a 90-page scouting report with 30 pages of analytics, it's never going to be useful. So we started building a pregame, postgame stat pack that just highlighted the stuff that we needed, using bullet points, taking summaries of what the data is showing us, and providing it to the coaches that way. And, honestly, I think the most usefulness of stats even today is to support coaching strategy. Once you have a strategy in place, you can start playing with the numbers to make certain players even look even stronger in certain fields. Like if you want a full closeout on a guy, you can say 5 out of the last 9 games, he shot 75% from 3. Things like that really, really open a player's mind and makes them keep it in the back of the mind when they're playing. Like, man, this guy can really shoot threes when, he might be a 45% or 30% 3-point shooter. But if that's the strategy you want to present and that's what you want to follow, those stats can really provide that for pregame presentations and things for the players.
So what I'm kind of hearing is, you kind of got a lucky break and got in the building with the Rockets. Your work ethic kind of let you stick around and kind of earned yourself the respect of everybody in there. But then you also had this skill of being, trained as a computer engineer, and all of a sudden that became really successful as the game evolved, and people needed, things like what Coach Van Gundy needed, and analytics becomes a huge part of it. And so I imagine just like you were ready and willing whenever there was an extra responsibility somebody wanted to throw on you. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, definitely. And, even before I was in the video room with Rudy's staff, everything used to be on a dry erase board. Pre-game, plays and everything were on a dry erase board, or even sometimes they would use these huge Post-it sheets and just write with markers on there. I was like, why don't we put it on a projector and put it on a PowerPoint, and that way you don't have to cover it up when media comes in and things like that. You just turn it on and off. And, little by little, I started gaining the trust of understanding the technology that's coming out. That, even when the first little PDA devices came out, everybody, if you could plug it into the wall, they would bring it to me first to figure out how to use it. And then it was my job to teach them, okay, this is how you make a call. This is the best way to do the emails. So that niche kind of became my identity of what I could help everybody with. If it had any kind of technology you didn't understand, they would bring it to me and I would show them, pretty quickly how to start using their most, all these expensive devices that they could afford, but didn't understand how to use.
Well, once I start to understand this, it's no wonder you stuck around for almost 20 years, because they needed you. You probably were the person that made everything go.
Yeah, but, I can't take all the credit. To me, there's two types of coaches. There's coaches that really understand and value their staff, and they try to provide as much as they can for them, because they know that, the video coordinators are probably the hardest working guys on a basketball staff in the NBA. They touch everything before it gets to the assistant coaches or the head coaches. So he valued his staff and knew that he was only as good as his staff. And when playoffs bonuses and stuff came around, he just signed it over to whoever he thought needed it the most or deserved it the most. So it's not often that you find coaches that care for people like that, almost like a family anymore. It's so business oriented, but there's still coaches out there definitely that are like that. But if you have one of those, you really need to be appreciative of that as well. It's not a given thing.
Okay. I know you worked under a lot of different head coaches there. Maybe you can briefly give us like a sentence about each person and what they like, what set them apart, what allowed them to be so successful.
Yeah. I guess we'll start from the beginning. Rudy Tom Janovich was a player's coach. He played basketball at the highest level. And, what was interesting to me about him was during huddles, as soon as they would come in, he'd look at the guys and say, hey guys, what do you guys see? What do you think we need to adjust? He took their feedback and then combined it with what he analyzed and then presented to the guys. And he was always so even kill. Like, it didn't matter if we were down 20 or up 50, he was the same guy as a coach. And I really respected that part of him. He was just really, really smart the way he handled his players and their personalities. And back in the day, those players, they were almost coaches on the floor. A lot of times they would make adjustments before they even came into the huddle. I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, but nowadays some of these players, they can't even talk to each other. There's egos and other issues that they have to have one person kind of be the one that tells them where and what to do. But back then, each player, had that knowledge and experience to be able to talk to each other and say, "Hey, we need to make this adjustment." Didn't even need a timeout; just keep playing, and that adjustment happened. With Van Gundy, I've never seen anyone that worked as hard as he did. He would be there at 5:30. Expect his video crew to be there, video staff to be there at 5:30 to have his edits ready. After games, he would sit in his office and watch the entire game and make his clips, and then go home at 1:30 and be back at the office at 5:30. Even for his presentations, he'd go into the locker room. We'd have to have the projector set up, and he would go through his slides and just kind of talk to himself and rehearse the pre-games. I've never seen that before. Like, the professionalism and the preparation of Van Gundy was above anything I've seen. I think following that was Rick Adelman, a guy that won 900 plus NBA games. There's not many guys that fall in that category. And it was amazing. We went from a Van Gundy that was, I wouldn't say a control freak, but very aggressive in wanting to have the guys listen to what he said. With an Adelman, he just kind of let things kind of organically happen, and he didn't really. I think he screamed maybe twice the entire 4 years he was there, and it was just so different, the coaching styles, but we still got great results from it. And that's one thing I was telling you about, Adam, is there's so many different ways to coach, even in a pick and roll. There's so many ways to cover it, but if everybody does it and it's covered correctly and prepared correctly, it can be done numerous different ways. Coverage can be done different ways. But with Adelman, what stood out to me was at halftime, they didn't ask me to do it, but this is right when I think Exos was our video editing platform, and there really wasn't ways to make cut-ups and show edits while you're capturing a game. So I would just record onto a DVD some of the defensive clips as the game was going, and just let that roll in the locker room. And I didn't even go into the back with the coaches, with the four coaches that talked about the game, and then we kind of all met together. But when I was going through those edits, the players themselves would talk to each other and say, "Look, see, we got to change this coverage. You got to be here. We got to talk," whatever it was. And then Rick Adelman would come in, go over the same four things that we talked about in the locker room with the players. So that's how in sync, everything was. And Coach Adelman would see a play once. I've never heard him say, "Rewind that. Let me see what happened." He would see a play once and know all 5 breakdowns that happened in that one play. Like I don't know how he does it. Like, being a video coordinator for so many years, you rely on that rewind and pause all the time. But for him, I don't know if the game was just, it slowed down for him like some Matrix or something, but he could see everything. It was amazing to me. And that's where the players respected that. They understood that he had full understanding of the game, and whatever he said, man, we better do it. And also, running the corner was one of the favorite things of mine in offense, where it's a read and react play. I remember so many scouts would come and say, "Man, I don't even know why I bother come scouting your games. I don't know. Y'all don't call anything. Everything's read and react. What am I going to write down? Corner for everything?" So it was pretty impressive, because Van Gundy was a slow it down half court guy, run every play, call plays from the sideline, and to go from that to Rick Adelman, which was left it up to the guys, left it up to the point guard. Hey, you put him in this set, or every once in a while, if we want to feed off of a play, we'll put you in this situation to get the ball to somebody. But those two had very different coaching styles, and still had really good results. I believe after that we had a very young coach, Kevin Mchale. World-renowned Celtics ex-basketball player, didn't have a lot of games under his belt, but he understood the game. And I think what's really tough is when you come in with such high expectations, and not a lot of coaching experience. you lose respect every time you say one thing that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So it's just really tough coming into a system now where players make more than the coaches. So I don't know any other business model where the superior makes less than the people that are supposed to be working for them. So the egos and things, a lot of that stuff came into play, and it was a tough situation for him. But we overachieved again. We got James Harden early on, and we were projected to win like I think 30 games that year, and ended up making it into the playoffs. So Kevin McHale's biggest strength, I think, to me was he was able to help the players in the locker room get along. I think he understood that really fragile relationship between players, and he was able to smooth that stuff out and push all the egos aside and have everybody work together. I know this is taking a long time, but the last coaching staff that I was with was Coach D'Antoni, and Jeff Bizadelic was a defensive coach that I worked closer with. But I think that staff probably took the most advantage of the analytics. They understood that we had one of the best analytic or the best analytic departments in the NBA. For an organization, and Coach D'Antoni pushed it to the max. We were always, I think, in history, we had the best offense out of all of the NBA the last couple of years we were there, or that I was there. And that's when we were saying that the long 2-point jumper was a very inefficient shot. And then guess who we pick up? Chris Paul. That was his ISO shot. It took him a month to say, you know what? There are better shots. There is a better way to get more out of my game. I think our goal was to have less than 10 shots that were non-paint twos. And every time we reached that goal in a game, we won. It was like 100% efficiency. So, once you start seeing the numbers and you see results, it's a lot easier to buy in. And Coach Bizadelic was one of the best defensive coaches that I've worked for as well. He was kind of from the Pat Riley, Van Gundy regime. I think they had I think one year it was Pat Riley, Jeff Bizadelic, Stan Van Gundy, and Eric Spoelstra was the coaching staff. And I think Spoelstra was the video coordinator at the time. So just imagine, so many great minds, on one staff. It's not surprising to me that Coach Bizadelic came out such a solid defensive coach, and I learned a lot from him as well. But even along the lines, like there's so many good assistant coaches I worked for too. Kelvin Sampson, there's Elston Turners. There's so many good assistant coaches. Chris Finch now is with Minnesota. He had a really good story too. He started off with the D League with the Vipers, and he was tasked to try to push some of these analytic theories onto an actual basketball team. I think they were testing out things like crashing the board with all 5 guys on the offense, taking as many threes as you could, and instead of just giving up on some of these things, he would figure out how to take the best parts of those things and integrate it into a working system, and had great results. They won the championship, I think, 2 years in a row, using these analytics to push their coaching strategy. So I think that's a really special situation that he was put in that not many analytic teams can even apply to a real team like that and test it out. So pretty cool things. But I'm really happy that he got the Minnesota job, and I'm expecting good things from him as well.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you indulging me on that stuff. That's the stuff that gets our listeners excited, hearing about all these household names in the coaching world. The last thing on the Rockets before we move on, it just indulge me on this too. I'm going to ask you a couple quick hitters, okay? Sure. Personal favorite Rocket during your tenure?
Wow, that's tough.
Personal favorite. It doesn't have to be the best or anything like that. Just guy you enjoy being around the most.
Yeah, I think some of the closest guys from the Rockets at the time, because we were kind of similar age at the time, was Steve Francis.
Nice.
He had a huge heart. Loved playing basketball. Just brought us over to his house and treated us like family. Mo Taylor was one of those guys as well. Yao Ming wasn't here very long, but I've never met a guy that's so humble. That was one of the best players in the league in my mind. Just injuries caused his season his career to end quickly, but humble guy, big hearted, really simple life. Didn't complicate it too much with things, but those three guys. Mo Taylor was great too. He brought us up to his Michigan house, paid our way up there. We went jet skiing at his house. Like, really big hearted guy. He's in Houston now, and he might even be doing some consulting work for the Rockets as well. But those three guys, really big hearted guys, really cared about the people around him, trying to help.
Very, very cool. What about best leader?
Ooh, best leader. That's tough. I'm gonna have to say, we only had him for a year, and he really didn't get a chance to show his leadership because he was overshadowed by someone else, James Harden. But Chris Paul, man, he was the reason I really respected him and his leadership was he did his homework. Not a lot of guys go and watch scout film to prepare for games, and his channel was probably always on League Pass, and I give him credit. He watched a lot of games. Like, he probably watched just as many games as coaches would preparing for games. So I think he came in with a lot of coaching strategy to meetings. He would push the envelope a lot. Like, hey, coaches, this is during our meeting, with the players. Have you thought about doing this, or do you want to try doing this, and he understood the game. But he was kind of the number two at the time. But now you see, like with Phoenix, if he has a young team that has a bunch of young guys and a bunch of guys that are moldable, he's somebody that you can really feed off of, and he makes you better. Definitely makes you better.
Okay, I got just a couple more for you. Best athlete.
Ooh, best athlete. I would say Steve Francis was one of those. I've never seen anyone dunk like James White. James White.
Yeah.
He was with us very briefly, but I felt like that's when the Boeings came out, and I think he could have sold a lot of Boeings if he had an advertisement with them, but just got off the ground so easily.
Cincinnati guy, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a couple of James Whites out there, but he's the one that was with the Rockets, and really cool cat too. I really appreciated the way he was with the staffers. But yeah, and then I got the tail end of Tracy McGrady as well. Just, man, amazing. Had such good shot touch too, but his body was built for basketball.
For sure.
He could make a pass flat-footed over a 7-footer with his reach and his hands and his eyes. Like, he was one of the best. He was out there shooting 30-foot jumpers wearing sliders, and just knocking 5 in a row. Like, it's just there was something special about him as well.
All right, best shooter.
Oh man, trying to think. Man, we had Glenn Rice on our team. Walt Williams was a really good shooter at the time. Shoot, even Matt Bullard had a record-breaking year, and that's all he did was shoot threes.
Right. Yeah.
Trying to think. John Barry was really good too. I remember we would do shooting drills, and he had to make 90 out of 100 to walk off the floor, and he always pulled it off. So, but it's a little different, right? Shooting in the game and shooting practice shots.
For sure.
But
those guys you just named did both.
Yeah, and what's amazing is a lot of these 3-point shooters that even would get traded and watch our games for the first time. their shooting percentages go up 10-15% when you're on a team where you're getting open looks instead of having to force shots with 10 seconds on the clock. So I think that's a really important thing to understand is your shooting percentage goes way up when you're on a really good team that spreads the ball or someone can create and get you open.
No doubt.
And that's a little different than what Steph Curry can do. He could play 1-on-3 and shoot 40% from three. So that's a little different. But yeah, we had a great man. I remember a lot of pre-practice 3-point shootouts, and I think Walt Williams and Glenn Rice and those guys, that staff, that crew, it was fun. It was fun to watch that stuff.
Very cool.
But that's how old I am when you're talking about Walt Williams and the Glenn Rice seniors.
All those names resonated with me. Those are good times, man, and very good players. You guys had a lot of talent come through Houston for sure.
Yeah. No, I've been blessed. I've been blessed to be around a lot of special players and a really, really good special group of coaching staff as well. Not just the head coaches, but all the way up and down. You know, it seemed like it was almost like family. It wasn't work. That was pretty much my first family back then. So.
Well, tell us about your new family. Tell us how you came to become part of Cerebro Sports. You're the chief product officer. Like we alluded to at the beginning, it's really cool to see, your guys' growth and some of the things you guys have done to push the envelope in terms of bringing analytics to, a wider market of coaches who might not necessarily be mathematically minded.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, my first season, I was let go from the Rockets, kind of when the Daryl Morey era ended. I was also let go. I was looking to be picked up by another team to bring in the technology aspect and increase everybody's efficiency as far as processes. With such short time and preparation periods in between games, that's what I tried to do. I tried to make everybody's job a little bit more efficient around me, all the way from the strength coach to the trainers to the equipment guy to whoever needed some technology to help them do their jobs better and more efficient. But there wasn't many openings or there wasn't a lot of understanding of my role. It was kind of one of the first of its kind. So teams really didn't even know that they needed someone like that. So it was kind of hard to find a position like that. But Ryan Geardot, our CEO at Cerebro Sports, was up at Summer League trying to show some of their first phases of the analytics that we were trying to build, or they were trying to build, and got my contact information from a coach that they knew, and they knew that I've had a lot of experience in the NBA, and like I said, I'm just basically a problem solver. If you needed something tracked or you needed a process built for something, that's what I hung my hat on. That's what my niche was. And, everything that I've done with Cerebro Sports has been basically the same thing. You're a problem solver. We're getting these types of stats in. We need to crunch them to be templated to a certain format so we can start processing the data and applying our analytics to it. And, most analytic companies, they send you a report and it's a bunch of foreign data that you can't even decipher, or a bunch of cool looking graphs and you don't know where you can take from it and apply it to your coaching. But with Cerebro Sports, what we're trying to do is make it so that the stats, the analytics that we pump out are so simple that a parent could understand it, a player could understand it. It's so skills based that now you look at 7 numbers and you can tell what a guy does just off of his box score stats. You don't need Eagle data or, wearable technology data to figure these things out. You don't even need a play-by-play. It's just box score stats that we can take from a 5th grade all the way up to international women's basketball to the NBA. And now you can start tracking and seeing how a player is developing, through their 3-point shooting efficiency, their scoring paralysis, their field general skills, which is like their point guard skills, their big man skills, and their defensive skills. And it just makes it so that you can see how a player is developing. And then we have a CRAM rating that makes it relative to the competition. So you might have a 700 RAM score, which is the overall rating score for one league, and be in the top 5% of that league and score a 10 in CRAM. But then in another league, you might be at 1200 and have a lower CRAM because the competition level is so much better. So those seven, I don't know anyone else that can give you 7 numbers on a player and you can actually get a picture of how that player is getting his stats. We're not going to tell you exactly how he's getting his threes or what kind of offense they're running, but we can tell you that they're putting these numbers into their box scores. And it's your job to say, okay, if these guys can produce these kind of stats, let me do my homework. Let me go watch video. Let me talk to their coach and see what kind of character they have. But you can take a group of 10,000 kids, pick the archetype is what we call it, the archetype of a player, whether he's a 3-and-D guy or a combo guard, or and put those metrics into the filters and say, oh man, out of the 10,000 kids, there's only 25 kids that fit this mold. Let me look deeper into those 25 kids instead of just starting to filter at 10,000, or have to get a scouting service and just go off of the guys that they've seen. There's no way they've seen all 10,000, but if we have data on 10,000 guys, we can tell you a little bit about every player in that set.
I love it. How has the response been to the product? And how has there been any usage of the product that maybe you didn't think about or has surprised you, or just ways to apply your guys' data?
Yeah, with any analytics system, you have to have more and more data to be able to have test cases and to even refine those analytic formulas. And I think our first product that we put out that we got a lot of coverage was the transfer portal for the NCAA. Normally, I think it's around 1,200 kids during the offseason transfer. I stopped counting this year. I'm assuming we're probably in the 4,000 or 5,000 kids that have transferred, and I mark off every kid that's transferred and committed somewhere else, and it's almost getting to like the 30-40% of the NCAA is transferring. It's crazy. It's astronomical. And how can a coach keep up with all these players every day? At one point there was probably 60 kids that were entering the portal or exiting the portal in a day. You're having to start from scratch every day just to see who's in the portal and to see who you need to keep an eye on. Well, with these analytics now, you can see, all right, we're losing a kid that's 6'4", that put up these numbers. Let me throw those analytic numbers into the filter and see who else can do it. And now you can even look at lower division. You can look at D2 and turn those numbers up a little bit, and then pull kids that are doing the same type of things in Division 2 at a higher level, and hopefully that'll translate into the higher Division 1 level. But a lot of the stuff I've recognized is you have to put data out there that is what they want to see before they even jump into the analytic part of things. I call it the Costco chicken. It gets you in the door to look at our platform, and then you start seeing that, man, these analytics, they line up every single player that I'm looking at. There's no way I can break it. They've got something to it, but with any new analytic variable or number that you throw at a coach, it's really tough. So many traditional coaches and scouts are saying, I've done this for 30 years. I've had great results. These are the numbers that I'm looking at, and that's all I need. Why am I going to look at these new numbers and learn from new set of data when I don't need it? But guess what? Now you can look at every player the same way. It's not just the players that you've seen or heard from a third party. This allows you to put everybody on a level playing field and not have to worry about bias and political reasons for ranks going up and down. This is what they've done. on paper. We're not changing any of the numbers. This is what they do. So it's basically taking all the noise out of the way scouting's been done for so many years, and allowing you to blanket everything. That's kind of where the name Cerebro came from. We have a couple Marvel fans in our founders. Ed Chow is our chief operations officer, and Cerebro is if you're a Marvel fan at all, it's a way to reach every mutant through the Cerebro system. And that's kind of what we're trying to say is with Cerebro Sports, you can reach and see every player and see what they've done data wise, and be able to locate them and compare them all on the same platform. And you were talking about what have we learned by just building this. When you start stacking up 10 seasons of what a guy does from EYBL to all the way to their NBA careers overseas, sometimes you start seeing the development and seeing like benchmarks of what they should be doing at EYBL if you want to be any good in college. You have to do hit certain metrics in college to be able to even play at the NBA level. So those are the types of things that we're just now starting to break through. Now that our formula is at a point where it seems like you can't break it. I challenge anybody that gets on our platform to look up a player and say, man, these numbers don't make any sense to what I've seen. We haven't had anybody come back to us and say, well, these numbers on this kid is a little different. We have seen guys say, hey, why is this kid that's ranked top 10 in the nation not even showing up in your top 10 in overall rating? Well, look at what he did in that event. In that event, he was not a top 10 ranked guy. Maybe in all the other events, he played cumulatively well enough to be that. But in this event, he did not play up to his capability, and that's why he's ranked 75 out of 500 instead of top 10. Or top five players in that league. So those are some of the things that are going to come out, and it's really, the unfortunate thing is these are kids, right? These are high school kids, and these are their lives. This is how they're going to get scholarships. Some kids can't afford to go to school, so they're betting on their basketball skills and their work in basketball to get scholarships just to get educated. And that's the thing is, if they don't have an even field to be able to represent themselves just based on their data of what they do on the floor, it's really unfair. I think it's one of our missions as a company is to give these kids the tools to see, hey, in this tournament, your defense wasn't very good. Look at how you compared to all these other kids. You were almost on the bottom 10% of defense. You need to start working on that and get a skills coach to help you with your footwork, help you understand, what techniques you can do to better defend. You're staring at their eyes, look at their feet, learn how their hips work. These little things can help these kids figure out, what, my 3-point shooting is great, but guess what? I spend 90% of my training on 3-point shooting. You need to start developing other parts of your game so that you can start showing up in the leaders in some of these overall ratings.
Great stuff. And the data within the platform is for, like you mentioned, college basketball. I believe you guys have NBA stuff in there. You guys are now doing prep basketball. You guys, I think, are doing the EYBL circuit. I think you guys do various prep events and tournaments throughout the year. So really a wide set of data that you can look at from all levels. And you use a tool for recruiting, or, as a tool to compare, with your current roster. Hey, this is what these guys in the NBA are doing. Like, let's get your numbers up to that level, or, various things like that.
Most definitely. And most recently, we put together a project for the draft. These kids are coming from all over the world, but I think we increased our database of data by 2/3. uh, by collecting youth data overseas. We've got data from probably 30 different leagues overseas in the last month, trying to prepare for this. And we have our draft project out there now where you can look at each player and see how they developed and see uh, how they did at different levels. It's not, it's not just the NCAA anymore. We're talking about there's 4 different Italian leagues. There's 5 different Spanish leagues. There's the NBLs in there. Like, we're trying to get at least a little bit of data for each player, and I think there was initially almost 400 players that were eligible for the draft. So it was a lot of data to crunch and clean and merge to get ready for that. But it was great. Now we have a set of data or set of leagues that we're searching out every year. We're just now mapping them out, where to get it from and how we process the data. The thing with youth data is good stats are expensive, right? And it takes a lot of dedication by operators to have good rosters for those, because heaven forbid, you give stats to the wrong player. It's tough. I've been on the floor. I went to the Damon in California. Next day, flew over to New York and went to the PSA event. And it's crazy. It's really crazy how hard it is to keep track of which player is which jersey on every team. But this is what's necessary for us to put out good stats. And recently we partnered with EYBL to be their analytic provider for all their kids. And man, it was awesome to be able to see good stats coming through, and to be able to even clean those stats. That's the highest level of high school basketball in my eyes. And we were still able to clean and accumulate the data better than anybody else that's putting it out there. We merged players that didn't have names and jerseys, and I think our data. I know, because I've hand scrubbed this stuff. Our data is the cleanest data for EYBL anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, for this past Peach Jam event. And right now, I'm staying up day and night to try to get the girls 17U data process, and we're gonna put that out there. And I think that's gonna catch fire. I don't think the girls get enough coverage in the media of which players are the best and how they did at the EYBL. We're gonna post some of these player profiles for these girls, and I think it's just gonna catch fire. And I'm really excited to try to expand our platform for women as well. That's well deserved. Those women coaching staffs, man, they work just as hard as the guys do, if not harder sometimes, with less resources. So I think it's time for us to try to incorporate some of that into our platform as well.
Yeah, that's great. And, sometimes when you hear about these platforms, you think, okay, this is going to cost us thousands of dollars. And unless I'm at a BCS school, there's no way we can afford this. But what's cool about what you guys do is, I believe it's web-based and it's accessible and the price point is affordable, really for all levels, whether you're at a small college, JUCO, all the way up to the blue bloods. It's something everyone can afford, and certainly something that everyone could benefit from.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's funny because we have so many players that are unique and unique data sets that you can type anybody in and know a little bit about what they do. Right away, it makes you even look smarter. You don't even know who the player is. You type their name in, all of a sudden, oh yeah, he's a really good 3-point shooter. He gets a lot of rebounds, and he's an assist guy. You can tell that right off the back off of our 7 metrics. I think, right now we're just trying to get the word out there. We want people to appreciate the work that we put in to the platform, and it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. But we want the people that are the guys that join us first to excel. We want them to be successful, and then want everybody else chasing you guys that join us. So, we're pretty much, most of our stuff is month to month. It's a small fee. If you go to our website, there's probably some demos that you can even look at just to see how our platform works. But it's amazing. I've never seen analytics that right off the bat, a player could understand. You can. We have a pretty high level D1 college coach that's going to map out his players 4 years at the school now that they have a 5th year eligibility, and show them, look, this is how you've been developing. If you add 1 assist or 1 rebound per game, all of a sudden you're going to up your overall performance by this many points. So let's work on this. Or all that work you put into your 3-point shot over the summer of that year, it increased your score 10 points. See, it was so well worth putting in all that effort, and showing them that you put in the work in certain fields. It shows on paper.
I love it. Well, cerebrosports.com is the website. Again, that's CEREBRO sports.com. Go check it out. John, I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today. It's been a pleasure, man, and wish you guys the best of luck.
I appreciate it. You guys too. I know you guys are growing all the time, and you guys got a great one. Brandon Rosenthal was one of my favorite interns. It was always a joy to be around, and always brought a great attitude to work. It didn't matter if he was tired or not. So kudos to that guy, and I really appreciate you putting in all the effort, helping all these kids out. Like there's not too many human beings out there that look out and help so many people at a scale this big. So anything else I can do for your organization, just ask and I'll be there.
Thanks, John. Take care, man. Enjoy.
Take care, man.